Greetings, dear chess fans and experts. This is Feedmaster Max Omariv with you. We keep making videos on dirty chess tricks. This is part 2. As I said in the last video lesson, I am by no means urging you to play with what I'm about to show. Rather, this video is being recorded for those who will confront such people who apply such variations. So here we go. Today we're going to analyze the Scandinavian defense, the move d5. We know that this opening does not enjoy any recognized fame, unlike, for example, the Sicilian defense, the French defense, the Caro-Kann defense, but this option is possible. And, in fact, it's quite common and cannot fail to mention it. What are the main moves in the Scandinavian defense for white? Here, move ed for the average player seems quite natural and generally the only move that can be made. What is the surprise of the opponent if in this position or vice versa, if the opponent plays with us knight f3? You say, well, what's the point? Why should we do it? You can't think of any more natural move than de and white plays knight g5. In this position, it's fair to say that black can get excellent play in different ways. But there are 4 moves the black shouldn't make here. Let's look at each of them in detail. So the move knight f6 is a perfectly acceptable move. I misspoke a bit. It is just wrong to play the way I'll show you next. So in response to the move knight f6, white plays d3, calling black to take the pawn. White actually goes for a gambit. They give up a pawn. To be fair, again, black is not obligated to capture ed. They can play, for example, knight c6 simply, or they can also do e5 and get quite a decent game, and I think it's even better. For example, knight c3, bishop b4. What's black's problem here then? White has more problems. If white takes de after queen d1, king d1, white forfeits the castling privilege and loses a pawn. So of course it would be wrong to say that this gambit can't be unaccepted. It has to be unacceptable. But a weak chess player can afford to enjoy an extra pawn. Ed, this will be our main option. Bishop d3. Here again we can't say that black doesn't have a fair game. If they play it right like e6, then bishop e7, I'm not sure what you can prove here on white's side. Yes, they are more active, but I doubt that white will achieve any great advantage or that there's any compensation for the extra pawn. A weak chess player may well afford to drive away the knight with the move h6 in the hope that the annoying knight will go away. Well, the Fritz engine tells me that knight beats f7 wins because king f7 is followed by bishop g6. And on king g6, queen hits d8, we see that white is just left with an extra queen. There's no way to avoid this option with knight f7, and in fact, black is already lost here. This is the first variation I wanted to show you. However, once again, I'm not rejecting knight f6, and I don't even reject the move ed, because we said that only a weak player might play h6, and the others will play e6, knight c6, and so on. By the way, white has already created a threat with the knight beating f7, which black has to defend against. So the moves like c5, b6 are no good here, and for knight f7, king f7, bishop g6, check with the queen win. Moving on, so instead of knight f6, black has a number of other moves. Let's start with the move queen d4. All these moves are for hold. So black is trying to hold their material advantage, thus punishing white for giving up a pawn. Let's see who punishes who in this case. Knight c3. White is building up pressure on the pawn e4. Seems reasonable to play knight f6. And white makes another move, not quite according to the rules of opening, queen e2, covering their own bishop. Again, it would seem that this move is completely absurd, since black has a simple move bishop f5, which allows them to protect the pawn and ask white a seemingly legitimate question. So what next? Well, of course, again, instead of the bishop f5, which probably loses the game, you can play e6 or you can play e5 and black has a great game. But we're looking at the trap variation of it, dear friends. Please don't forget. And I remind you that I don't recommend playing this way for white. I'm simply stating the fact of the possible existence of such an opening. On the bishop f5, the most intelligent of our listeners immediately saw the move queen b5, after which black has big problems. Queen d7 is followed by b7, and it's unclear how to save the rook. On queen c6, bishop b5 wins. What other options are there? If we close with the knight or with the pawn, then bishop is lost on f5. That leaves the bishop d7. On bishop d7, queen b7, bishop c6, bishop b5. And in this position, black should probably play the bishop beats b5, though it's hard to recommend that move. Here after the knight beats b5, everything collapses like a house of cards, but the move queen d7, which looks more natural, runs into a neat ending. The bishop hits c6. The knight cannot hit it. The rook hangs, queen c6, and after queen c8, white declares checkmate. Such a surprise. You can easily see that there's no way to avoid this option. And the unexpected move bishop f5, aka pawn eating, meaning that keeping an extra pawn by all means leads to a quick loss. The next move, which we'll analyze, is the move queen d5. White must then naturally do something with the g5 knight, such as playing d3, ed. The bishop beats d3, offering a second pawn. Again, there's no way a strong chess player will capture d3 because after the bishop e4, you can give up. The only field the queen has left is the queen g4. Queen g4, bishop g4, bishop beats b7. White wins the rook and probably the game with it. Another move that looks most, shall we say, bad is f5. Certainly this move I will not recommend to anyone. If after the knight f6, queen d5, queen d4, black has a good chance to be okay, then after the move f5 black is probably in big trouble. White plays bishop c4. The only move to defend against knight f7 or bishop f7 is knight h6, which is already a big disadvantage. The knight is on the edge of the board. White plays d3. By the move knight h6, black took away the possibility to drive away the knight by the move h6 and at the same time weaken the diagonal h5 e8. Capturing seems to be necessary, but perhaps the least of evils again is to just develop the pieces, after which the black's position is quite okay. They can play it. After ed, white unexpectedly hits cd, creating an additional weakness. In fact, the idea is quite simple. The idea is to bring queen to b3. For example, e5, queen b3, knight c6, castling. And here, white has quite a strong attack, which develops by itself. If we don't play f5, I haven't shown you one option yet after queen d5, d3, ed, bishop beats d3. Here's the point that black can play queen e5. Check. That seems good too, but we all know the great rule that the queen should be developed after the minors are developed. Before that, a developed queen only brings trouble. Bishop e3, queen beats b2. The second pawn is captured, knight d2. Well, black knight f6, for example, castling, knight c6. And suddenly, after the knight c4, it turns out that black loses their queen. After queen b4 follows a beautiful move c3. Where should the queen go? You can't move it to b5. On the queen hits c3, rook c1. Queen b4, a3. And after all, white gets to the queen. The queen has only one square b5. And after the knight d6, the queen is lost. Let's summarize our observations. All the variations I've given to you are the result of the wrong way to play for black. White plays a provocative scheme, which, of course, is no good if a strong chess player is playing against them. As I said, here's for instance the knight f6, just d3 and, for instance, e5. After that, it's not all clear what white is doing all this for, and black has an excellent game. Moreover, ed bishop d3 is also not clear what to do if black develops the pieces. But this variation is designed to trap, and again, this video is made for people who want to avoid such problems early in the game. Because it's very frustrating to lose to seemingly not strong chess players who win at the expense of traps. It can be a serious blow to you and make you play badly the rest of the tournament. And it's even more frustrating to lose a game like that at the end of a competition where everything depends on the number of points you get, and every point is very important. Dear friends, that concludes my presentation for today. Don't use dirty chess tricks, but know how to defend against them. All the best, and I'll see you in the next video.